Hi, and welcome back to the ghbond channel. Tonight we're going to go through two topics at a high rate of speed so you can watch it all in 5 minutes. The first item is Richard Hart's appearance today on Fox Business. If you've already seen it, skip over till you start to see the charts. The second, the charts have to do with the tokenomics of the HEX coin, which was the topic of today's broadcast. So Payne spent a lot more time attacking Richard than he did giving Richard time to talk, so we're going to break it down for you. 30 seconds he gave him to explain Hex at the top. Richard said Bitcoin has stuff that it can't do, and people have been giving away their keys in the hopes of getting a percentage. Richard says it's the opposite of what crypto was created for, which is true. We wanted to get rid of the middleman, and so instead people give their keys to a middleman hoping for yield. Hex generates its own yield while holding your own keys, so you don't have that third-party risk. So a lot of people only now realize what Richard's been talking about all along, which is great. After Richard's 30 seconds, Attack Dog Charles got 2 minutes and 15 seconds to attack Hex and Richard Hart. Starting out with Richard Hart's Hex token is a brilliant scam. If you've been in Hex a while, you've probably seen this article. And if you look at the tokenomics at the end of this video, it very well addresses this. Richard just basically quite accurately pointed out that people don't understand what a Ponzi scheme is. And so when they call it a Ponzi scheme, it's just because they don't know what that term means. This is not a Ponzi scheme. The second piece of the attack was that Richard Hart is actually the spam king. This had to do with that little small claims court incident, which Richard didn't even bother to show up to defend himself for, and it was a $500 fine, so he dismissed with that as well. I sure hope Mr. Payne gives his research assistants a firm talking to after digging up this garbage and wasting our time. Next, he gave Richard 40 seconds for his outlook on the crypto market, and Richard pointed out that he called the top in Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin regularly drops 85% and it's not there yet. He also mentioned that the ridiculous NFT market was a symptom of a bubble and that we can't have a true bottom until all of that speculative excess gets worked out of the system. Not to be deterred, Mr. Payne went back into attack dog mode. 45 seconds Richard had to spend defending his bags. In other words, people thought that Richard Hart was basically dumping on his new users. Richard Hart pointed out that not a single token has ever been sold from the Hex origin address, and that an Ethereum, Vitalik, and the Foundation dump on your head on a regular basis. After that, Charles Payne tried to move on to the next segment, but Richard jumped in and said, "You know, I called the top on the day." Then Charles Payne came back with, "Well, I don't want the top call, I need the bottom call now." And Richard said, "Well, when we get close to 11K, I'll make that call. We're not ready yet." So now we're going to move on to why Hex is not a Ponzi and how it relates to the US dollar. Okay, I've got 2 minutes left to make you a Hex expert. The Ponzi scheme was named after Charles Ponzi, and if you look it up in Wikipedia or any other suitable source, you're going to find out that the key defining characteristic of Ponzi is that new investors' money goes to pay off old investors. So while old investors think that the actual investment is working, they're actually just getting interest, which consists of money from the new investors. Meanwhile, our white-collar criminal down here is loading his bags up, and hopefully he can split town before the whole scheme comes crashing down, because as soon as you run out of new investors, you can't pay the old investors anymore. Brief look at the Hex chart. You can see new and old investors are pretty much the same. All the money that goes into wallets stays in those wallets, and there's no interaction between the wallet and the Hex money printer. The Hex money printer is the inflation machine. It takes 3.69% inflation on the entire Hex universe, and that is paid out to the people only who stake. So these people down here with the wallets don't get it, only the stakers do. If you stake, whether you're new or old, your small bag goes in here, the tokens in the bag are burnt, and you go and you join in the inflation pool, and every day we calculate who gets their little piece of the inflation pool. Now, how do you get a piece of the inflation pool? Well, number one, you have to stake, and then it's determined by how long you're staking, how big your stake is, and how early you staked. Now for me, my stake is a couple years stake that I've had going for a while, and I think it's paying about 16%. But the longer stakers get higher rates, maybe up to 40%. Whoever is staking is sharing in that pool, and as people come in and out of the stake, the pool payout changes every single day. At the end of your stake, your bigger bag comes out, and now you have your original coins plus the ones that were generated by the money printer. Again, nothing to do with the people down here. Their money's still sitting in their wallets, It hasn't changed at all. There's absolutely zero activity in this situation that would meet the definition of a Ponzi. Same can't quite be said for the U.S. Federal Reserve System, because we know the U.S. Federal Reserve System has a money printer. Unlike the HEX system, where everybody's happy with their money in their wallet, people aren't quite as happy here because they have no control over this inflation. At least in HEX, if you only have your money in the wallet, you know that there's a fixed amount of inflation every year. Our inflation goes to the people in the U.S. Congress who think it's their right to print unlimited money to pay off the U.S. debt because we can't seem to live within our means ever. Social Security and Medicare, and of course you know these entitlements are ever expanding and will have the money printer working overtime in the years to come. Everything else being equal, given a choice if you could have the US dollar or HEX, I think you would choose HEX, having a chance to print your own inflation rather than have inflation working against you at the Federal Reserve in random amounts. So that's your quick lesson on HEX. I hope it was instructive, and I'll be coming up with more, a little bit slower lessons down the road. Until then, enjoy your inflation and enjoy the low HEX prices.